and better for music, but couldn't reach as far as AM radio, and listeners were fine listening to lower quality signals for talk radio, meaning that it was rural Americans well outside of city centers that was their key market demographic, playing into certain conservative and regressive ideologies around people and social issues, etc., was great for galvanizing that community. And this coincided with the aforementioned rise in media consolidation, as well as the vision of people like Newt Gingrich, who recognized where politics would fail, culture wars could prevail. And so what we have is our first ever basically algorithmic bubble, where a whole community of people are cocooned in a specific view of the world without ever being exposed to opposite opinions, and then enriched and radicalized and having everything about that reality turned up to 10 to the point where we are today. We're at a point now where Charlie Kirk is saying things that Limbaugh would have been taken off of air for in the 90s.
Taylor Swift might de-radicalize herself, engage in reality more, and get outside of the abstract clouds. Reject feminism. Submit to your husband, Taylor.
Again, the point is always to push the envelope on what can be deemed normal and civil, and that's what these people have been and are continuing to do. Republican politicians courted Limbaugh's favor. He makes visits to the White House, he advises presidents, and he gets more and more influential. Mind you, in this same time, both Barack Obama and Bill Clinton served 8-year terms. So he isn't all powerful in terms of actual sentiment for most Americans, which is something that's important to remember, but I'll come back to that later. But the nature of our politics is fundamentally altered in terms of polarization and what counts as a political platform. Instead of actually talking about policies on helping American people with jobs and healthcare and the economy and even safety, it just becomes, are trans people playing sports with your children? Are gay people kissing each other? Are black people existing? The most effective commercial, and this has been proven in the previous American cycle, was this commercial about Kamala Harris talking about trans people, using the slogan, Kamala is for they, them, Trump is for you.
Every transgender inmate would have access.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
That is a proven thing that worked more than anything else that the Republicans put out there. That should tell you something about the power of the culture wars. Mind you, there was also liberal and progressive media and content doing the same thing. Jon Stewart rises during this same time, as does NPR. Liberals even tried to mimic talk radio with the failed Air America, but it was not good enough to shift the Overton window with this significant amount of Americans who, if we're honest, liberals weren't paying attention to. The country as a whole didn't seem to realize what was happening in middle America this entire time. A lot of especially modern liberals don't recognize is that Obama and Bill Clinton moved the Democrats to the right. Yes, they did. Stop arguing me about this bullshit. Look it up yourselves. Do the fucking Googles. And Clinton specifically pushed the Democrats right in a way that gave Republicans two options. Either move left, which was out the question, or move further right, which is what they did with the help of Limbaugh. They vilified everything the Democrats did, even if the Democrats were doing exactly what the Republicans wanted to do, such as the '94 crime bill or the welfare reform bill, both under Bill Clinton, or Obamacare, which got its origins from Mitt Romney's healthcare plan. What Limbaugh and the culture wars did was make it that even working with Democrats to make the government functional and help a small amount of people was seen as a heinous betrayal to the conservative reality and ideology. He helped create the image of Democrats as godless communists who hate America, and that impact reverberates through conservative spaces and leadership to this day. In that process, Hillary Clinton became a supervillain even before she ever held any type of office. So when she ran in 2016, unbeknownst to many liberals in the Democratic Party, she was fighting essentially 20 years of negative campaigning to millions of Americans. The blue wall had cracks in it for decades, and nobody noticed. And let's be clear here. It wasn't hard to make the Clintons look bad in middle America. The Democrats had long since abandoned the working class in favor of neoliberalism. They serve the same corporate overlords that the Republicans do. They participate in the same behavior that exploits and harms American people. They just do it with nicer words and a more diverse cast. Please understand that Democrats had their own culture war strategy of paying lip service to racial minorities, immigrants, and the LGBTQ community, but never doing enough to actually help them outside of grand gestures and empty promises. Even today, whenever we see figures in the Democratic Party that are more progressive and are more trying to get away from corporately owned politics, people like Bernie Sanders, Jamal Bowman, and Zohran Mamdani, the Democrats prefer establishment figures owned by corporations instead and do everything they can to undermine those movements, which is why Democrats constantly lose. Meanwhile, NAFTA, started under Reagan but signed by Clinton, expedites the mass erosion of jobs in Middle America, and this leads to poverty and dysfunction in those areas that turn into hotbeds for opioids and meth and heroin in white populations. And then here's Rush Limbaugh and his cohorts such as Sean Hannity, Michael Medved, Herman Cain, etc., explaining that their problems, the problems of these white people in these rural towns in Middle America and in the South, those problems that they're experiencing are the result of the Clintons, the Obamas, immigrants, critical race theory, and eventually trans kids playing soccer, the woke mind virus, and postmodern neo-Marxism. And it's worked beautifully for well over a decade now. And so Trump won in 2016 and liberals were shocked and did it again in 2024. But don't mistake this for the country moving more right. It's just the country responding to its natural right-wing disposition. It's because the right is winning the culture wars. It is clearly apparent that the right isn't doing much to create new ways for Americans to thrive and be successful. No one believes in trickle-down economics and probably never have. Republicans haven't been the party of small government since Dwight Eisenhower. But they know policies don't matter as long as they promise to hurt the people that their followers hate. And in that regard, they're doing an amazing job. And this is the role Charlie Kirk really played. He wasn't God, family, country, all that shit. He was meant to be a provocateur, but not to galvanize the masses, but to collect those already interested in the rhetoric that the right presents and to radicalize them into devoted followers who will support the right no matter what, no matter if it's actually hurting them. What conservatives require are cult members. They require people who are more interested in winning the culture war than their own well-being. People immune to facts and logic. This will come up later, but understand the modern right isn't this huge, overbearing mass of people. What it is a well-organized, highly motivated mass that can in unison move and influence everything about our political reality. I talked about it in my election results video that Trump had hundreds of thousands of votes in swing states where voters didn't even bother to vote for any other candidates or issues on their ballots. These voters weren't politically inclined or informed. They just came to vote for Trump as a part of his cult of personality. That's what the right has understood for decades now. It's what they learned from Limbaugh and why even today, as they get exposed for all kinds of corruptions, openly court Trump to defy the Constitution or get caught having racist group chats, they never apologize, never admit wrong, never play defense, because their most valued followers don't want that and don't need that from them. Never forget Trump saying, "Stand back and stand by," when asked to denounce white supremacists. That wasn't an accident or a misspeak. That is intentional. A small group of highly dedicated, well-organized, and mobilized believers is all they need under the circumstances, because those folks do the work. They do the evangelizing. They do the recruiting, and they come out to vote, which is really all they need when the Democrats are as weak and feckless and genocidal as they are. And thus, America has steadily moved further right in pretty much every meaningful way for most of my lifetime. Sure, gay people can get married for now. You might even see a gay kiss on TV every once in a while. For now. And there were some DEI workshops and some donations to black schools or whatever after George Floyd was murdered. But never forget that after a year of protests and riots in the name of George Floyd, all these people shouting defund the police, that the government's response was to raise police budgets nationwide. This country is as right as it's ever been. Policing hasn't changed. The rich continue to get richer as the poor get poorer. Corporations own our data, our ways of communicating with each other, and even our access to art. The country is still hella segregated. Women no longer have the right to abortion. There's still no free health care. You can still buy AR-15 the same place you can buy Pokemon cards. Military police are invading American cities and kidnapping people off the street. And America is still an imperious superpower supporting and funding numerous genocides across the globe. Aside from a few victories here and there and some dynamic changes, the right has been winning the political game via the culture wars for a while now. This doesn't mean we stop fighting. In fact, we're in a better position than we've been in decades on the opposite end of the spectrum. But let's not be delusional on where the ledger stands. All that said, something else occurred to me when I saw Charlie Kirk get shot in the neck and the ensuing aftermath. And that maybe winning the culture war isn't the goal here, because the winners of the culture war seem more like losers. Part 2. Who was Charlie Kirk? I barely knew who Charlie Kirk was before he died.
Do you truly, in your heart of hearts, truly believe that this is a human being? This,
Without a doubt.
without a doubt,
Yes.
this is a dolphin fetus. This is a human fetus. Look how similar they look. In life, do you confuse dolphins for human babies often?
Regular watchers will know I don't engage in rage-bait content much. For all the accusations I get of catering to white liberals, this is my first conservatives are bad video in like 3 years, because I don't like attracting those types of viewers. I don't watch or listen to conservative pundits. I don't make content about the ridiculous things they say or do. I legit could barely tell the difference between him and Tucker Carlson, because they all fit in the same mold that I just described earlier. However, they're trying to make him into a martyr. They're trying to make him on the same line as Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, to lionize him as a sympathetic figure who only wanted what was best for people in America and had deep, meaningful beliefs about free speech and open dialogue and getting past differences. God, family, country, in that order. And to the untrained ear who doesn't know the reality, who could hate that? But I know that Charlie Kirk started out by targeting people for free speech, by targeting college professors and trying to silence them on college campuses for saying anything that was in any way progressive. I know that these same people who say God, family, country will gladly persecute you for not worshiping their God, kill your family, and put you out the country. Of many things I'm going to expose about Kirk, the main thing that should tell you the type of person he is that he's the only conservative pundit that I can think of in my lifetime to legitimately and publicly criticize Martin Luther King in any real way.
When the New York riots happen, it goes for like a
condemn
week.
them,
It goes
right?
for about a week. He's telling King, you've got to say something to condemn this. And King says he doesn't want to do it because he says, I don't want to deliver a condemnation without also condemning the causes that lead to riots.
That sounds
he
like
can't just-
BLM. I wanted to make sure that, after that conversation, we talk about the positives. And then we also get into some of the other implications of this. We're a truth-seeking show. But I can say declaratively, this guy is not worthy of a national holiday. He is not worthy of godlike status. In fact, I think it's really harmful.
Most conservatives aren't bold enough to engage with MLK critically. Instead, they like to use the sanitized version of King to push their right-wing agenda. But maybe, I guess to his credit, Kirk has purposely brought up King's radicalism as a way to undermine him, likely in preparation for Project 2025 and the purging of civil rights that we see they're clearly trying to attempt. Notice how Kirk talks about the civil rights bill and his issues with it. He doesn't get very specific, does he?
Imagine what happened during 2020 with even more murdering. And imagine just remember how angry we got when CNN called it mostly peaceful.
Exactly.
And this is one of the reasons why MLK's numbers went down towards the end of his life.
This is one of the reasons why MLK's numbers went down towards the end of his life.
He doesn't spell out the problem. He just insinuates that a problem is there, and he expects everyone else watching to know where he wants to go, but he can't quite go there yet publicly.
The Civil Rights Act was a new founding where we decided to discard the U.S. Constitution and reconstitute the story, the mantra, the creed, and the vision of America. And you even see this in Republican circles as well, where they say, well, the Civil Rights Act corrected a lot of the errors of the Constitution. No, it didn't. The Civil Rights Act was